this is the first Town Hall AMA for Welcome to Sun Keros and the Open Your Eyes web series. It's also my first time using Facebook Live, so we'll see how well this works. Hello, Joe. Welcome. I'm at a mystery place. I'm not gonna say. Suffice to say, it's a place I felt comfortable doing this. I know, somewhat cryptic, which is so unlike me. That's a good question. Not directly. The characters are, of course, super crazy noisy when we have the first person. The characters are based on character traits that I may have borrowed from people that I've met or interacted with. But then they're kind of all swirled up like a rainbow sherbet cup. And remixed into somebody entirely new. So while there may be elements of certain people represented in some of the characters, they're not a direct representation. While we're waiting for some more folks to chime in, let me just say, because there has been a little bit of confusion, this is a web-based project. Welcome to sunkeros.com is going to be the home, at least for now, for Open Your Eyes. We'll be posting an episode once a week. When those episodes go up, either that day or the day after, we'll be updating the information about the city and the characters and some of the other things that kind of happen around the story so that as you read, your knowledge of both the city and the people who live there grow. The goal is to sort of make a sort of almost a living document of the story. When the story is complete, the Open Your Eyes is finished on my end. It should finish in about 11 to 12 episodes. When that's done, we'll start the next story in the Miracle Season sequence, still on welcome-to-Keros.com. At that point, there may be a physical version of the story all bound together, available in book form. But I'm not ready to announce that yet. You're seeing my eyes dart to the left, it's because I've got a couple other social media clients open, and for whatever reason some folks are not hanging out on Facebook but are somehow knowing what I'm saying, which is a little scary. So oh, hi Travis, I didn't see you come in. I would love ultimately to see the world branch out into some other forms of media. A lot of the setting was developed by me when I ran a 5-year-long RPG campaign, which people of those who played with me while I constantly kept expanding the world rather than focusing on the story, are going to recognize some of the stuff as the story goes on. I wouldn't rule out doing other stuff in the future, but right now I'm really focusing on making sure this first story goes out there in a timely and efficient fashion. Technology, while being the mode I'm conveying the story in, is not always my main, it's not necessarily my specialty. So I have people on the sidelines helping to be sure that this comes off without a hitch. And then depending on whether folks dig it or not, we'll look at expanding it then.
Here, so you want to move all these coloring books.
So as I was saying a second ago, I do have some folks on some other social media pages chiming in. They have some concerns about the contrast ratio on the story. I wasn't expecting technical questions, but we can certainly take them. I have had a couple people mention that, so I'm going to be looking into slightly altering that probably later this afternoon. So at least for the story page proper for episode 1, we'll be doing some behind the scenes stuff to make that a little bit more readable and a little bit more approachable. Doug is asking if there's a blurb that kind of talks about what the book is about. I did post that a couple times yesterday, but there were so many posts going up about the site and the story itself that it's entirely possible that folks that were looking for it managed to miss it. So while you can certainly find those things on my social media streams, they're still there, but it never did get posted to welcome-to-Keros.com, so we will be doing that this afternoon as well. We'll also be updating the Goodreads profile for the book. It's already registered there, but there's some elements of the entry that are not yet complete. We'll be finishing that up this afternoon too. Hi Chad, hi Jason. Thanks for joining the chat today, I appreciate it. You too, James. It's kind of striking to me that out of all the people that are showing up today, so many of them start with the letter J. I'm going to call that synchronicity. So if any of you guys have any questions about the project, about the book, the characters, Hi, Doug. There you are. Or anything about the project or writing or what have you. I'm glad to answer anything. We're going to keep this running. Well, why don't we say for probably at least another 10 minutes or so. We'll finish right around the 2:30 mark. We'll be doing these informally with a little bit more notice going forward. So, not necessarily after every episode is posted, but fairly regularly. Well, while we wait for some more questions, let me talk a little bit more kind of about the genesis of the project. While the setting was at least partially inspired by the setting I developed back, gosh, probably about 2002, 2003. The characters and the story itself were really inspired by two things. The first, my high school reunion, 20-year high school reunion, which seems impossible. But also a different project that I've been working on off and on for about 10 years. And I got to a point where I sort of felt like the characters weren't... I didn't necessarily understand the motivations for the characters as they sort of acted themselves out on the page. And the root causes of their behavior and what was happening around them as time went on seemed to be more interesting to me at that time than the story I was writing. And as I started to write what happened in the Fragile Summer, that kind of brought all of them together and then sent them all on their separate ways when they were much younger. I sort of realized that the start and the heart of both the story I had originally started and this one were the same. So that's how the Miracle season was born. It'll be a series of interlocking stories shuttling backwards and forwards through time, featuring different characters. So you won't always see all of the same characters in every single piece as it goes live. Some of those pieces will be very short, what I like to call a ficlet. Others will be novella length by the time they're done. Obviously the larger ones will be broken apart into episodes, kind of like how Open Your Eyes is now. Joe is asking, which of the characters do I most identify with? Kind of depends on at what point in my life you would ask me that question. There's definitely been points in my life where I would definitely align myself more with Rothgar. You'll meet him in episode 2. Episode 2 is a Rothgar featured episode. And then by the end of the story, there's definitely elements of Beth's personality that I could definitely relate to. But in a lot of ways, Beth and Rothgar and the interactions between them are really strong portions of my own personality. So in a lot of ways, the reason the story focuses so much on the two of them is because what they're negotiating and what they're talking about is a struggle that I have within myself almost all the time. And so it's sort of my way of putting it out there and seeing what other people have to say to greater increase the radius of that conversation. jump screens here really quick to be sure what's going on. Okay. Any other questions from anybody else? About the story, the characters, the world, the websites, writing process. I will say episode 1 doesn't really give you, it introduces Beth, of course, but it doesn't give you a lot in need of questions to ask, I guess. It kind of lays out in some ways who Beth is, and what she's doing in the summer of 1991 when all this stuff begins to happen. You'll start to see little glimmers of the larger structure of the story in episode 2. And episode 2 should go up next week. Alright, well, looks like, oh! How long is the first series of stories planned to take for release? Open Your Eyes is a 12-episode story. Some of those episodes are very short. Some of them are very long. But this story should take us pretty much through the new year. And then in January we'll launch the second story, and then we'll kind of go from there. Jennifer just direct messaged me on Twitter. She'd like to know what kind of story this is, which is, I guess, is fair. It's sort of a story about coming to terms with things we can't control, or at what lengths we go to for the things that we believe in, and how sometimes there are consequences to those decisions that we commit. It's also a story in a lot of ways about loss, and about how different people deal with that loss in different ways. And of course, because it's me, it is what I would classify neo-mythic fiction, which is taking mythology of old and then translating it into something new, or with a modern, postmodern look on it, and either construction or deconstruction thereof. Alright, well, we've got just about 1 minute left. If anybody's got any questions they've been holding on to, I'd love to answer them. I wasn't really sure whether 2 o'clock on a Wednesday was actually going to cross some people out, so I really appreciate those of you who took the time to stop in. Will there be any animals in the story named Bourbon? No. No, there will not. There will be some animals in the story, though. But none of them will be named Bourbon. I'm sorry. That will... That's an odd question to wrap up our first St. Keros Town Hall AMA with. But I want to thank you all for coming on the middle of a workday afternoon. In hindsight, that might not have been my best call. But for those of you that took the time during your day or your workday to stop in, I really appreciate it. And we will be posting this pretty much right away. I think that's how Facebook Live works, actually. The minute I click the finish button, this will be available for people to watch and view. If you've liked the first episode of Open Your Eyes, over and welcome to stkeros.com. Please encourage your friends to read it and drop me a comment either there directly on the site or on any of my social media streams. And I look forward to talking to you guys all again. So thanks so much.